Greetings, Gimmelites! Quite a sci-fi term that seems to be, but a lot of you are using that on my Facebook page, which is fun. Got a very exciting vlog for you, actually. I've just been up in the loft in Gimmel HQ, looking around for my Kaplunk and my Twister mat. I'm slightly bored this afternoon, so I was looking for a few childhood games. But very interestingly, when I was rooting through the lofts, I found this. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. Crystal Maze, the popular Channel 4 TV treat we all absolutely relished in the early 90s. How have I come to have one of these, you may all ask, in the realms of the internet? Well, very interesting. It just so happens that a Gimmel appeared on Crystal Maze in the first series of Crystal Maze, believe it or not. It wasn't me, that would be physically impossible because I was 11 at the time, but it was my father, Brian Gimmel, who I've mentioned in other previous vlogs. Pups actually got on the Crystal Maze. I remember I was 11, he came home from work and he said, well, he didn't talk to me actually about it, which was surprising because he knew I was a big Crystal Maze fan, but he went straight to my mum and he said, the gang, as he called them, the lads in the office, they've signed us up for the Crystal Bloomin' Maze. And we're going to be appearing on this TV show presented by Richard O'Brien. And I said, Dad, that's fantastic news. He just ignored me, really, just carried on talking to my mother. I guess he was making a point. You don't interrupt people within the flow of their own conversations. And he said, we're going to be filming it next week. I'm not going to be here for a few nights, because apparently there's rehearsals. I've got to set the cameras up. It was a real insight in how they create these TV shows. And I said, Dad, can you get me an autograph? Once again, he just sort of ignored me. And I thought, this is amazing. My own father is going to enter the TV arena which I worship from day one. Crystal Maze. And my mother told me not to tell anyone he's going to be on the TV show, because it needed to be a surprise when he appeared on the screen. And I agreed and I said yes, blah, blah, blah. But I remember being at school and just being filled with so much excitement. And I brought my primary school teacher, Mrs. Mann, to a side. We were doing painting at the time. I said, Mrs. Mann, can I have a quick chat with you over here in the library section? And she kind of looks at me quite bored, not really interested. Looking back on it, I think it's pretty clear that Mrs. Mann was going through some kind of clinical depression or some kind of relationship breakup, because she wasn't really on the ball. She wasn't at that focus when she would talk to me. And she wandered over to me to the bookcase area, which I like to take her over to have chats. And I said to her, Mrs. Mann, I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to make an announcement at the end of the lesson. And she said, you know, you did an announcement this morning, Gimmel, you did an announcement yesterday. And I said, no, it's nothing to do with the litter patrol or me trying to combat bullying in the playground. This is different. This is about my family life. And she looked a bit shocked and she said, maybe you should keep that to yourself. I imagine things are happening there. And I said, no, nothing's happening there that's, you know, inappropriate or negative. It's something very exciting. My father is going to be appearing on a TV show. I'm not going to tell you which TV show it is, because I'd like you to hear it alongside my peers in the classroom. It's pretty impressive. And she just kind of shrugged her shoulders and sighed and wandered off. I took that as a yes. And I wrote myself a script. And she was just about to say, you know, right, well done, class, see you tomorrow. I said, Mrs. Mom! And she sort of sighed and pointed to the front of the classroom. I marched to the front. As usual, I got a few wolf whistles and a few sort of inappropriate comments, but I thought, hold back, Gimmel, because they're going to be listening to you in a minute. And I said, guys, I've got quite an exciting announcement for you all. Tonight, on your TV screens, will appear a Gimmel. Not me, not yet. And I just did what I just did then. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Looking over to Mrs. Mom. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Silence. You know, and to get that room in silence was quite an amazing thing to do. And they looked sort of confused, but also intrigued. And I said, my dad, Brian Gimmel, is going to be on Crystal Maze tonight. And before I could say anything else, Mark Gibson to the side of the room shouted out, you're a liar, Gimmel! At that point I just thought, that's just it, I've had enough of you, I've had a bloody term's worth of you. And I said, you, sir, are a fool! You are going to look like a hell of a fool tomorrow when you wander in, and my dad has been on television. Full stop, alright? And I will take a verbal apology from you, Mark, when you have sat down and watched my father for half an hour alongside Richard O'Brien winning crystals. I've had enough of your shit. I know it's a controversial thing to say in a classroom, but I've had enough of it. Alright? And my dad's going to be on that TV show. And I said, you can very well criticise Mark Gibson, but let me ask you one question, sir. Where is your father right now? I tell you, he's not on a TV show. You'd be lucky if he's watching a TV show tonight, because he's in prison, Lewis prison. Massive silence in the classroom, real tumbleweed moment. At that point, I felt perhaps I'd gone a bit too far. Mrs. Mann tried to bring it to a stop, and I said, Mrs. Mann, please, just give me one more second, alright? And I got a piece of chalk in my hand, and I wrote on the board, Dave Gimmel's dad, in brackets Brian, will be appearing on Crystal Maze tonight. And I swung around, gave them all a glance, and I said, if this does not take place, if this turns into a lie, as Mark Gibson calls it, I will give you my pocket money for one entire month to Mark Gibson. It was very Phileas Fogg, very 80 Days Around the World. And Mark Gibson made a comment saying, oh, that won't be much, will it? I said, do you want it, yes or no? And he said, yeah, I'll take it. All right, we've got a wager, gentleman's wager. Mrs. Mom told me to calm down. I did what I was told. But I just gave Mark Gibson another stare. Just watch Crystal Maze. I mouthed it with my mouth. After that announcement, there was a lot of silence and just a very tense feeling in the room. I mean, a lot of people didn't know that Mark's dad was in prison, so it wasn't just a Crystal Maze thing, you know. I mean, in retrospect, part of me thought that perhaps I shouldn't have brought up the whole prison thing, because Mark's dad was in there for sexual assault, so it was a bit of a low blow, if you know what I mean. It wasn't really something to sort of talk about within a public setting.